You're listening to the Preacher's Hour podcast,
a podcast that dives into culture and society from a young preacher's perspective.
I'm Jeffrey Copeland. I teach middle school history. I'm married to my wife, Selena, and I'm a student of the Bible.
And I'm Brandon Jackson. I'm married to my wife, Jess. We have 3 beautiful daughters, and I love to share the gospel with teenagers and help disciple them in their walk.
We sit down each week and have conversations about what we've learned,
what we're learning,
and what we think about current events happening around us.
Enjoy.
What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Hope you guys are doing well. We are back. Episode part 4 of the Theology series that we're on. I can't remember what episode number it was, so I was like, let me just go with the Theology thing.
Is this 4 or 3?
This is 4. We did 3.
Oh, wow.
That's how many parts we've done. I mean, the last one was dope.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I remember is you shortening the time of the last one. 2 episodes ago. That's all I remember.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try not to bend time. And
I appreciate that. I really do. I thank you. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
I do what I can.
Hilarious.
So, I have been learning a lot about God. Shout out to the Bible Project. I recently, I was praying. We're going through a season of fasting right now, guys, fasting and praying. I was praying in the morning in the closet the other day, and I was talking to God about what He wants me to do, like with my job, and does He want me to keep going with my job? So I go seminary. I'm asking all these questions, and so He leads me to the Bible Project's website, and I made an account. I donated some money. I'm like, I'm getting way too much from these guys to not
give.
Help them. So
right.
I gave them a quick little donation, and they have this thing called Classroom that they're starting.
Yeah.
They give you free graduate level classes, and so me and my wife are gonna go through them pretty soon. Probably after this week is over. It's our last week of work for a while, so I'm gonna start going through that and just kind of seeing what I get from it and something I want to pursue. But
and it's free too. So
yeah, man.
No risk for you, sir.
Yeah, man. Taught by Tim, I'm with it. But
let's go.
I've been listening to their series on the character of God, and I just think there's so much important theology in there. If we can understand who God is, like Pastor Carl was preaching today, we shouldn't just praise God for what He's done. We should praise Him for who He is.
Yeah.
And you can't do that unless you know who He is. And
Facts.
The coolest thing about our God is that He's told us who He is.
Yes. He's giving us detail about who He is.
I mean,
what He likes, what He doesn't like. So if you know Him, you know.
Yeah, man. And so they're doing a series on the most quoted verses in the entire Bible.
Oh, wow.
The most requoted. They're either directly requoted or paraphrased in some kind of way. They're all over the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you said
everywhere.
I thought you meant ones that we quote.
No, requoted in the Bible itself by the biblical authors.
Wow. Which is crazy. I just learned there's a lot of things that are requoted, but they're not in quotations.
Right.
I can't remember the actual verse, but I was reading. I was like, I heard this before, and it was but they didn't normally
they didn't have punctuation like that anyway.
Oh,
so I mean, we add that in. We either the scribe or the translator, whatever, will notice this is a quote, and there's some context I think within the language itself that someone who was reading it would know this is a quote. But as far as we are concerned with punctuation and stuff like that, I don't know if they had that in Hebrew, so that's why it's not there. But a lot of stuff that you read throughout the Bible is from somewhere else. There's tons of they all call them hyperlinks and stuff like that. So all the biblical authors are riffing off each other, and of course they're all influenced by the same source, which is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. They're not plagiarizing out here.
No.
Yeah. So these verses are Exodus 34, 6 and 7. They're the most quoted verses in the Bible.
Exodus 34.
Exodus 34, verses 6 and 7.
There's wine voucher in here.
That was my dang bookmark, bro. You
Oh, that's
let
a
my bookmark slide out.
I didn't know it was a
Cold blooded, man.
I thought it
What's
was.
this doing here? Just toss
I
it.
just saw it was a wine voucher.
know.
I was like, man, you keeping this thing? Okay. I'm boy trying to get close to the Lord. Right? Let's go.
The blood of Christ.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right, 34 what?
6 and 7. So you have the NLT, I have the NIV. I have the ESV. We'll go ahead and I'll read mine. You can read yours.
Okay.
So this is the Lord talking about himself, which is super cool. God actually describes himself. Yahweh passed before him and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and the fourth generation.
The Lord passed in front of Moses, calling out, Yahweh, the Lord, the God of compassion and mercy. I am slow to anger. I am filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. I lavish unfailing love to thousands of generations. I forgive iniquity, rebellion, and sin, but I do not excuse the guilty. I lay the sin of the parent upon the children and the grandchildren. To the entire family is afflicted. No, affected. Even children in the third and fourth generation.
Amen. So there's a lot in here. A lot of people are uncomfortable with the second half. A lot of people and even the authors themselves sometimes will just quote the first half, which sounds good. Like, oh yeah, God's great. Yeah, I love it. They don't talk about the by no means I clear the guilty. And so,
Jeez.
So first of all, let's put this story into this verse into the context. This is literally right after the children of Israel make the golden calf. Okay. So God is pissed. He's going to destroy them. And Moses intercedes on behalf of Israel 5 times.
Oh, wow.
And God responds with 5 characteristics of himself.
Oh, that's dope.
I don't think that's a coincidence. And then it's so crazy. Like God says, I'm going to wipe them out. And then Moses intercedes. He's like, hold on. No, you said this. And he's like, all right. And then a couple of times at one point, God says, I think before this one, the 4th intercession, God says, all right, I'm not going to go with you guys because I'm still pissed, but I'm going to send an angel to be with you. And then Moses is like, no, God, like it has to be you that goes with us. Otherwise, we're not going to be any different than any other nation around us. Like they need to know that your presence, you are with us. Oh, wow. Don't send the angel. And so God's like, all right, I will do it. You have found favor in my eyes. And then Moses asks him, let me see your glory. And that's when this happens. This is literally as Moses in a cave, in the rock, or in the mountain. God's passing by, and he says this about himself as he's showing Moses his glory.
Wow. It's
a lot.
First of all, the fact that God calls his own name.
Yeah, and I love how he says it twice in the Hebrew. Yahweh, Yahweh. Yeah. But he tells us exactly. And I mean, this is such a big deal to an ancient person because most ancient cultures, you are completely in the dark about your gods that you're worshiping. And we have a God that's like, I'm going to tell you exactly how it is. And so we can break these things down. And I'm getting like all of this from the Bible Project, guys. I don't want to take any credit for this.
Hey, you learned it.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that.
I'm just saying. I
so
didn't learn it.
Before we get to God's characteristics, where he is compassionate, sometimes translated as steadfast or loyal, love, gracious, slow to anger, merciful, and faithful.
Okay.
Right? Those are his 5 characteristics.
Wait, read it one more time.
So you have compassionate, steadfast love, gracious, slow to anger, merciful.
Okay.
He's also faithful, obviously. Now, I actually want to start with the bad news.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always the best way to play.
Because I was at first like, this sounds crazy. But when you actually understand like a little bit of Hebrew, it actually makes sense. So some people might ask like, so hold on, God's going to visit the iniquity on the sons of the father and the grandchildren. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
So like what your dad does, God's going to take it out on the
Yeah.
kids. That's not what this is saying.
Hmm.
So that third and the fourth, if you read, it's either, I think it's Amos. It's either Amos or I think it's Amos. If you read Amos, there's this figure of speech in Hebrew where you say the third and even the fourth, or a third and even a fourth. It just means a lot, basically, is what it means.
Gotcha.
It's just it's a way of saying something in Hebrew, like a lot or a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And so what God is saying about himself here is that what I'm going to do, the way that I'm going to behave, does not just apply to this generation. I'm going to be like this moving forward for every generation of Israel that I'm making a covenant with.
Okay.
So that's good news. So your kids can expect the same. I'm going to be this
same
way.
So I'm gonna be
all the
loving,
time.
compassionate, slow to anger to the fourth generation.
And then that's just, it's not literally just the
right,
fourth,
it's
and
just
the fifth is good. No, it's just again, it's an exaggeration. I'm saying I'm going to be this way. I'm going to be consistent. You can count on me behaving in this way. How awesome is that?
I mean, especially knowing that the people in Israel at the time didn't have, not Israel, the people around them, all the other people who had got their gods. They didn't know. First of all, their gods weren't real, so they didn't know what they were commanded to do. They didn't they were just like shooting in the wind. Like, they were just like, okay, I think he likes this, or I think they like this, or I think they want this. Where God literally, like Yahweh says to them, like, this is who I am. This is what you can expect of me. That's dope.
Yeah, and Tim in the podcast uses an example of like, if my crops are going bad or all my chickens die or something, and I'm another ancient person, I'm like, man, which God is upset with me? What do I got to do? Which sacrifice do I need to do? In this case with Yahweh, you know what you did.
Yeah.
You know why this is happening.
Yeah.
Right? It removes a lot of the mystery out,
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool that we know how our God is going to be. And I think this is really important for theology because, like, if I know who I'm in a relationship with, I can better love that person and be loved by that person and not hurt them and please them and all that. Same thing with, you're with a marriage or whatever, friendship.
Yeah.
If I know what the person is like, that's a big deal. You know what I'm saying?
I can agree with that.
Yeah. And so that whole, he won't clear the guilty, but he is quick to forgive. He will forgive if you turn. So, first of all, I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with the idea of God being emotional. Do you think you're uncomfortable with God being emotional? Have you ever thought of God as being emotional?
Well, because most of the time I think about being emotional in a bad context. So it's always like, if someone's emotional, it's not a good thing. And then you think about when you're emotional, you act irrationally. So you just I'm in my feelings. Or if I'm super happy, then I'm gonna spend too much money. If I'm super sad, I can still spend too much money, and I'm gonna eat too much. If I'm super whatever, I think that in our context of someone being emotional is you're gonna overdo it. Either way it goes, you're gonna overdo it. So I think that's me. If I think about God in that way, if I'm honest, it's kind of scary because I'm like, oh man, I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't know what he's gonna oh snap. Are you gonna kill us all? Or are you gonna let us live? Are you gonna kill some of us and let us live? How do I get into the living side?
Man.
So I think there's a lot of things that go on in our mind as we think about God being emotional. But if I've never really thought about it. That was the first time ever.
Yeah, I think I would say, first of all, yes, God is emotional. And I think it's good. It's good for us. He's the only being who can be emotional and not be irrational.
Yeah.
And some people would look at this story and go, it seems like God was pretty irrational. He was really mad and he was going to wipe him out.
Yeah.
And it looks like a human changed his mind.
Right. Like Moses had some type of
he was his therapist.
Hold on, let's just talk this out.
Let's talk about this.
God, have a seat. I got you this nice throne you can sit on, and let's just hash this out real quick. Yeah, I think that's the idea that many people have, even for me.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that as far as Moses changing God's mind, quote unquote?
So my theology tells me
Go ahead.
that Moses can't change God's mind.
Okay.
Like Moses doesn't have the wherewithal, the authority, the anything to change God's mind. That's what my theology says. I guess my carnal mind, my human brain would perceive that no. From what I'm reading right here, he did change his mind.
Okay.
If it had not been for Moses, all of Israel would be wiped out. And then I guess just my logical and spiritual together says that it could be a little bit of both.
Okay.
It could be a little bit of both of like not necessarily Moses changing God's mind about destroying Israel, but it could have been Moses reminding God, hey, this is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you had commanded. This is why you did this. And if you do this, these are the things that like are everyone's going to think about you, which aren't really true about you because you have said.
Yes.
So I think that all that it all gets down to I believe that I don't think Moses changed God's mind at all, but I do believe that Moses reminded God, like, hey, this is what you do. This is who you are.
Okay, so I do not disagree with you at all. So let me tell you what I've gleaned.
Okay.
In this past few weeks or so, past week or so. So, number one, Moses doesn't even know what's happened yet. He doesn't know what Israel's done.
Word.
He doesn't know yet. God didn't tell him. He just said, hey, the people have corrupted themselves. You need to hurry up and get down there. I'm going to wipe them out. Get away from me. So Moses doesn't know yet. And then when Moses gets down and he sees, he gets mad and he breaks the tablets. He's like, man, don't be mad at him.
What the?
And he gets mad, right? So that's just
kill them all.
Yeah. Take him back. Take him out. Yeah. Okay. So now that's just a side note. So what this story is setting up, because all Moses does is repeat who God says he is and what God has promised. Because if we go back in the story, God made a promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He could have just said Abraham. He didn't have to say Jacob.
No.
But now that this is the thing we got to remember about our God. He has to do what he says. Mm-hmm. That's the thing about God. I'm going to get back to that in a little bit. He has to do what he says. So he has put himself in a box.
Wow.
By saying, I promise this to Jacob and his seed, which is the 12 tribes.
Yeah.
Right? Because he even says to Moses, I'm going to wipe them out and I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And Moses is like, no. Remember what you said? Because what about with Egypt? Remember, and it's I got to go back. One of the funniest things is that God says, the people that you got out of Egypt have corrupted themselves. And he's like, wait a minute. And if you go back to Exodus 3, God says, I'm going to go save the children of Israel. So go save the children of Israel.
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to do it, so you go do it. Now he's going back. Man, people that you saved,
it's funny because
knowing it was him.
Like as a parent, like you always like choose like when your kids doing good, oh, that's my kid. Like my kid did that.
Go ahead.
But when they act up, you're like, hey, get your daughter, man. Yo, my daughter. Yeah, that's your daughter.
Yeah, not mine.
I don't know where that came from.
Super funny. But what this is setting up, and you're going to see this theme repeated throughout the Bible. This is just, I think it's the first instance of it. No, it's not. Noah's the first instance of this. There has to be a righteous intercessor to help humanity.
Yeah.
Like God has set it up where because he's partnered with humans. This goes back to Genesis. This goes back to Genesis 1. Okay. Remember that the Genesis chapter 1 is God's dream scenario for creation.
Okay.
That he's partnered with humans. Again, once he says it, he is now bound to it.
Yes.
That's what God is. Okay.
He is his
so
word.
he has to be partnered with humans.
Right.
So he has created a scenario where there has to be at least one human who can righteously intercede on behalf of all of humanity. Who does that sound like?
Jesus.
Exactly.
Let's go.
So this is like Noah.
Let's
and
go.
Moses. It's just setting up
Yeah.
to even now where Jesus is at the right hand of God, constantly interceding on our behalf. Not that God the Father is some crazy, irrational, angry guy who needs to be reminded, hey, don't do it now.
Right.
But it's just God involving us and sharing with us. That's what Moses is representing here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can get with it. I think.
Yeah. Job has to do it for his friends. He's a righteous intercessor.
yeah.
Where like literally Job has suffered something that he did not deserve, and he has to pray for his friends. Even before he has to do it before God restores him. In fact, he has no idea he's going to be restored. God, he has to plead, God, don't hurt them,
because he was going to kill him.
Yes. So there's always this theme throughout the Bible of a righteous intercessor. Daniel does it. There's tons.
David does it.
Yeah.
Actually, even doesn't Abigail do it for her husband when David tries to kill him?
There's a theme of a righteous intercessor that has been woven throughout the Bible.
And then that's us now.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So because God has said this,
That's deep.
he is slow to anger, right?
Yeah.
He is compassionate. He has a ton of compassion. We'll get back to compassion in a little bit. He's gracious. He has loyal love. He is loyal. He has steadfast love. And he will forgive. He wants to. And the thing about our God is that if there's a scale between his justice and his mercy, it is tipped toward the mercy. He is always leaning towards forgiving, even if we don't deserve it.
Yeah, he wants to forgive.
Yeah, like this verse, these verses are later, along with the 10 Commandments, are directly quoted in Deuteronomy 5. But if you go to Deuteronomy 5, Moses actually adds to this verse where he says, I think it's Deuteronomy 5, like 30 something, if I remember correctly. And he kind of further clarifies the terrifying part where he says, for those who hate me, I'm not going to clear your guilt. But for those who love me and turn to me, and you obey my commandments, I got you.
Yeah.
So he further clarifies this.
That's dope.
Without those verses, we're kind of like left like, oh, wait, what, God? You're going to do what? You're not going to, oh, okay. So then you realize like, if a nation will turn from its wickedness, God is always willing to
forgive them. Yeah.
Right? And then there's a verse in Jeremiah, I don't know where, but God actually tells Jeremiah, do not intercede. I forbid you to pray for these people. Because God knows if you do, I have to forgive them.
Oh, wow.
So he actually tells them, no, don't.
Don't do it.
Hold on, don't do it. Because I don't want to have to like do what I said I was going to do, basically. Because God knows
I want to destroy them.
John said in the podcast, he's like, so God like knows he's a pushover. Which is, he knows that he has a soft spot for us. And it's like, all right, I'll forgive you.
That's hecka dope.
He's just so full of compassion, man. It's amazing.
Dude, that's epic, man. I think there's something that we actually miss when it comes to like our relationship with Jesus, like our relationship with God in general, which is another reason why our theology could be off sometimes, because we don't look at God as like as a merciful God. We keep thinking of him as like a tyrant who's always who's out for blood all the time.
Especially in the Old Testament. A lot of people try to like separate.
Yeah,
he was the crazy evil God in the Old Testament and the
super loving God.
Just like folks, no,
he's the same.
This is in the Old Testament.
He's trying to be merciful.
Yeah.
He's being reminded of his mercy and his grace, and then he like acts upon it as well.
Yes.
So like, they did okay, even with Noah in the ark, he could have killed everyone.
Yes.
But mercy and grace was like, no, we're not going to get rid of everybody. We're going to continue humanity, and then we're not going to start all over. We're just going to we're going to try to fix this. We're going to try to get this thing right. And eventually, like, even through his own mercy and grace, him sending himself, like, we don't understand how merciful that is. Because if it was any of us, we'd be like, nah, I'm sorry. I tried for 6,000 years. I tried for 10,000 years. Yeah. I tried for 1 billion years to get humanity to act right. They wouldn't do it. I'm not going down there. That's it. That would be our reaction.
Yes.
But instead, like, Christ came. God came in the form of a human being and did what we couldn't as an act of mercy. Again.
And it's amazing like how God is emotional, and it's a beautiful thing that we have an emotional God. Because if you look, I think it's in Hosea, where God is describing himself as a husband who is dealing with a wife who's like just cheated on him, and he's just so hurt.
I remember that.
And it's just like,
I remember reading that. That was sad.
My wife and I were talking in the car on the way home from church just about how like we don't understand that this is a relationship. Like we still don't fully grasp that we're in a relationship with this God. Don't. And I think that's what Pastor Carl's message was so so good about waiting, like having to wait on God. Like, I was thinking about this as church was ending. I feel like God like gave me this revelation. So we question, like, why do we have to suffer? We're always like questioning about suffering, and we don't realize, number one, how much we make God suffer, how much humanity has made him suffer and is always making him suffer. You mean, you're talking about your beings that you created don't even think you exist.
Wow.
Like he's constantly in pain. These people that he literally did a marriage ceremony with, that's what Exodus is. Exodus 20 is God and Israel literally just got married. And he laid out the terms of the covenant, and they said they would do it. And then they immediately mess up with the calf. And it's just like,
dang,
he's just constantly suffering from us.
I think we believe that we can't hurt God.
That's the problem. I think that's a huge problem. Well, he can handle it. He's fine. But don't let me suffer. I shouldn't be suffering. You can suffer all you want, God, but I shouldn't be suffering.
You can handle it, God. It's no big deal for you.
Good.
You're God.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. Which is crazy because he will, but it's like...
But neglecting the fact that he shouldn't have to.
Exactly.
He's freaking God.
Like
he should always be respected, always be honored, always be listened to, always be obeyed. He shouldn't even have to forgive. Because he'd never be disobeyed. But that's how compassionate he is, that he allows us to still exist when we disobey him, right?
That's crazy.
But I also, if we get this idea right of suffering, because there's so many verses in the Bible that says, like, we have to join Christ in his suffering, the fellowship of his suffering. And James talks about, like, rejoicing when you go through suffering.
Yeah.
We don't realize that when you suffer, that's when you can relate to God the most. That's why he allows us to suffer, because that's when you're actually the closest. That's when you have the most in common with God and with Jesus, is through suffering. Yeah. If we could change our mindset about suffering,
we can obtain like a closer relationship with God.
Yeah, man.
Because then you wouldn't, I mean, not that suffering doesn't hurt, because it hurts.
Yes, absolutely.
But the idea is like, I get to, like, me and God get to share, because we don't get to share in his glory.
No.
We don't get to share in his authority. Like, I mean, on certain levels, the idea is there, but
I think the closest you can get to relate to
like
God,
fully sharing in something is like suffering. Like, especially when you look at like disciples and like people who suffered and died.
Yes, martyred,
like that. Yeah. That's a different type of suffering, yo.
Yeah, dude. I'm reading this book, How Africa Shaped the Christian Mind. Shout out to John Drodos for letting me borrow it. And so I don't remember when this book was written, but Africa has almost 50% of the continent of Africa is Christian. They have almost 500 million Christians. 500 million, so almost 500 million Christians. I think by 2025, it's going to be 640 million Christians in Africa.
That's crazy.
And I think the continent only has close to 1 billion. So like more than half of the continent is going to be Christian. So they're the fastest growing church in the world, is in Africa and Asia. Why is that? And then the fastest growing church is the southern half of the world. South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. Why is that?
All the suffering.
The poorest half of the world is the closest to God. Meanwhile, the northern hemisphere with the West, Europe and North America,
gone.
We're too comfortable. We are doing everything we can to avoid suffering.
Yeah.
I mean,
we don't even depend on God anymore. Like something Peyton said a long time ago, when you have a credit card, there's no reason to pray. Like, what are we praying about? Yeah. Go charge it.
Charge that much.
Go charge it.
Yeah, man.
And you can, when we went to Africa, I mean, that was a form of like, it was a mission trip. And granted, it wasn't at all what people actually lived through. We weren't like sleeping in the same area that they were sleeping. We weren't like feeling the same type of suffering they were feeling. But we got to see what it was like to trust God when you have zero. I'm talking about you get a headache, and what is it that you tell the church, and the church comes to your house and prays for you. And then they pray and pray and pray, and then they'll leave, and they'll come back next day and pray and pray and pray until the headache's gone. And then you talk about Thanksgiving. Bro, I'm talking about the person who was sick, who had the headache. What's in America? Us in America would just go grab a Tylenol and like, all right, going back to work. but like they would like take what I'm talking about, take whatever they had. Oh, we don't have money, so here's chicken. We don't have money, so like here's some toilet paper for the church. Here's something for the pastor. Here's something for whoever. But they would just bring an offering of thanksgiving.
Yes.
Bro, we got a headache. We don't give things at all. We just take a Tylenol and be like, we're good.
Forgot I even had it.
Gone. Just hey, I feel great. This is great. Yeah. So like when you look at when you said that about the suffering, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I know where suffering is, and I know people who suffer daily who have way more faith than
yeah. I mean, we really got to get our theology about suffering down, because we could look at it differently, look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't suck. That's not what I'm saying. It definitely sucks. But like, if I can just realize why God is allowing this to happen, because he wants to relate.
Yeah.
God's giving me the opportunity to relate to him, get to know him on a deeper level by suffering. That's when you're the closest to Jesus. And Josiah sent us a video. I got the chance to watch it before you guys came over. It was about 28 minutes. And it's like this guy going over the medical evidence of Jesus' crucifixion. I mean, it was intense. We'll have to watch it during the break. I'll try to show you some highlights of it, but it was intense. There's some of it that I already knew, but just to like really rehear it from like somebody who's like studied like surgeons' data and just different things like that. I mean, what Jesus went through is insane. Like, it's insane. And then the ending of the video is amazing. Oh my God, is something else. In fact, let's go on a break right now, man. We'll come back with a couple more verses. We'll talk a little bit more about the characteristics of God, and then look at 2 more verses. We'll be back.
All right, see you in a bit.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
This is a commercial for Preacher's Hour.
Gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, our Patreon, guys. So we talked about it a little bit in some episodes, but this is the actual commercial for it. So we have a Patreon. They have a website as well as an app that you can get. And we have 2 tiers on our Patreon. If you know how Patreon works, if you watch other YouTubers, everyone has it. My brother has one. Heck of people are using them. So we have a donation tier, which is $3 a month. You don't get any extra perks. You're literally just helping us out. We just would love it.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
And then we have a $5 a month tier, and that one you would get access to our YouTube live that we will do. So we're gonna start doing. We did an Instagram live before. We're gonna start doing YouTube lives, and they'll only be for our $5 a month Patreons. And they'll be able to do like live Q&As with us, and it'll just be really interactive. So if you don't want to miss out on that, hit on our Patreon real quick. The link will be in the description of our episodes. It's patreon.com/preachershour. If you need more information, hit us up on Instagram.
Yeah, help us out.
Yeah, man. All right, back to your regularly scheduled program. All right, guys, we're back from our break.
And we're back.
We had a really good discussion off camera. It was not on topic, but it was dope. Maybe we'll bring it back for an episode.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. So I wanted to continue talking about the characteristics of God, his compassion, his grace, his loyal, steadfast love. He's slow to anger, and he's merciful. And we know that he will be like this consistently. He's always going to be like this. And one of the cool things about it is that he's not always going to require you to be like totally righteous before he shows you compassion.
True.
Like,
yeah.
Like, so let me give you an example. This is Nehemiah chapter 9, starting at verse 26. Nevertheless, they were disobedient and rebelled against you, and cast your law behind their back, and killed your prophets who had warned them in order to turn them back to you. And they committed great blasphemies. Therefore, you gave them into the hand of their enemies, who made them suffer. Okay? And in the time of their suffering, they cried out to you, and you heard them from heaven. And according to your great mercies, you gave them saviors who saved them from the hand of their enemies. But After they had rest, they did evil again before you, and you abandoned them to the hand of their enemies, so that they had dominion over them. Yet, when they turned and cried to you, you heard from heaven, and many times you delivered them according to your mercies. And it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
Like, it just keeps happening. Like, God will continually, he is bent towards compassion and mercy and forgiveness. He can't help it.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yeah.
In the book of Jonah, okay, that's another one of the more famous re-quotings of Exodus 34. Jonah tells God, I didn't want to come to Nineveh because I know you are, and he repeats the list. You're compassionate, gracious, loyal love, slow to anger, quick to he literally reminds God of what God's already said about him. So that's why I didn't want to come. I know how you are.
Wow.
And then in Joel, another very famous Joel 2, he says the same thing. God, you are compassionate, gracious. I mean, it's everywhere in the scriptures.
Wow.
It's even John 1, when it says he's full of grace and truth. If you look at the Greek version of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, that pair, grace and truth, it really means trustworthy. That is the Greek re-quoting of Exodus 34, 6 and 7. So it's even in the New Testament. It's everywhere. Who God is, who the God of that relationship is, bro.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, man. So theologically, how do we apply this? What are we supposed to do with this information? What do you think, Brandon? Like, what do we, knowing that God is these things, how do we respond?
Oh, man. So, there's many ways, but like for me, after knowing like who God is, knowing that he's like trustworthy and faithful and just, it's number one. I think we have to give him like the respect. Like we just gotta like know that God is God, and then like know that he's like loving at the same time. Like he's a good father. And
I'm glad you said that.
We gotta just see him as such, and not think that he's either out to get us or out to harm us, out to strike you with a bolt of lightning every time you sin. But he's always trying to get you to come back to him. He's always trying to say to you, "Hey, I know what you did. Like I know what you did, but I'm not holding that against you. I'm not trying to get you caught up." So this is something I've noticed. When I was in high school, we had two security. I went to a continuation school, and we had two like armed security guards, and we had one police officer. The security guards always tried to catch you in the act, while the police officer was always trying to like make sure you didn't do it. But even when you did it, he was like, "This is what I was telling you. Like this is what happens when you do stuff like this." But like I'm not gonna. He would definitely punish you, but it was like you either got like detention or whatever. But he wasn't taking you to jail. Yeah. The security guards is always just trying to catch you in the act so they can put you in the back of their car. For whatever reason, they just wanted to feel macho.
Power,
yeah, but God's already powerful. He's already like macho. He doesn't have to prove that to anyone. So his whole thing is like, I want you to see me as gracious and loving, as merciful, as slow to anger, and honestly quick to listen. Yes. I think God is he's more prone to hear you.
Like it said in that verse, he heard them from heaven.
Yeah.
They cried out to him.
It was like, we can't do it. We can't. Like, could you?
God, we're sorry. We messed up. He is always going to be like, let me go get him.
Yeah. And that should be our response to always cry. I think I believe something I do, and let me just say not what I think. What I do is when I sin, I used to. Always like just go into despair and like think that like
don't want to talk to
God. I'm not gonna make time for him. Like he doesn't want to talk to me anyways because I already messed up.
Yeah, which is the exact opposite of the case, man. So, give you guys a little Hebrew alert here. So compassion in Hebrew, the noun is rachamim. The adjective is rahum. So to be compassionate is rahum. God is rahum. And he has a lot of rahamim. And so those two words, they sound like the Hebrew word for womb, like a woman's womb, which is rechem. So you have raham and then rechem. They sound alike on purpose. And it all points back to God as a parent. Like,
Wow.
he has this compassion,
compassionate parent.
that if your child is crying, they messed up, they're annoying you, they're not listening to you.
Yeah.
But then
when
they
it's
cry
alright,
for help. You're coming.
no
A father is coming to their child's
no
aid.
matter what
No
they
matter
did.
what.
No matter
That is our God.
Okay, Bean.
Like, literally, that is him. No matter what we do, if we go, I need you. Dad,
Oh man,
he's
let me
coming.
get up. Yeah.
That's what his compassion, that's what
Because
it means to
it's
have compassion.
only an uncompassionate parent
Yes.
who holds a grudge against his child.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't care if your kid is if your kid does whatever, like, steals money or robs a bank.
Yeah.
It as a parent, you don't only see that, like, okay, my kid is a thief. No, you see, like, my kid has some issues.
Yes.
My kid is a thief.
Yes.
But he's still my child.
I gotta help him.
He's still my kid.
Yes. And God is faithful and compassionate to a fault to his kids. Like, he will,
That's some
like
good
these
news.
people in here, no matter how many times they did evil,
The cycle
the
of
moment they're
apostasy.
like, God help us, he's coming.
Yeah.
He's here. I come. Running. That's my song, bro. And so
good.
I think that is implications for us and God. To add to that, the implications for us and other humans, we need to be like Jesus. We need to have compassion. Because here's something I didn't point out until now. So the scary part of the verse 7, where God says he will by no means clear the guilty. He will visit the iniquity to every generation. Right?
Yeah.
What is the ultimate fulfillment of God not clearing the guilty and visiting the iniquity on every generation?
Jesus.
Yes.
I didn't even know that. I just figured that was the answer.
It is. But, like, think about that. God keeps his word. I am just. My justice is important to me.
Because he didn't let sin just run rampant.
I'm not going to let the guilty
Somebody
be clear.
had to pay for that.
And it's going to be me. Like,
oh, I love hearing that.
man.
Because it's one thing to say, like, all right, fine, I'm going to find somebody, I'm going to choose somebody to put all this on. And it's like, dang, that's going to suck for that person.
Yeah.
But when that person is the person who's actually inflicting the justice on, it would be like the justice system in America judging itself and then putting itself in prison because it was unjust.
Yeah, on behalf of all the criminals.
Yes,
Letting them
and let them all go
Mm-hmm.
free. Like, could you imagine? I mean, first of all, no one can do that.
No, Donald Trump ain't doing that for y'all.
Joe Biden ain't doing that.
He
I
definitely
want
ain't
Joe
doing that.
Biden. Need Joe Biden. He about to pay for your sins and not Joe Biden.
Ew.
So I think people don't really understand not just the implications of that, but like the compassion. Like,
Yes.
I mean, I promise you, every parent, maybe not every parent, but most good parents, when you see your kid in pain, you just want to be like, nah, just let me take it.
Yeah.
Like, let me. Oh man, I mean, none of my kids have been, by the grace of God, have broken a bone or anything like that. But like, there's been times when I think it was like Gabby would get something in her eye, and it's just like she's like jumping and like, I'm trying to like calm down, I can get it. When she got that
go head stuck in her foot and she screamed like we cut her foot off.
she thought she was about to die.
She thought she was dead.
She was like, nah.
I mean, she screamed like I had never heard somebody scream in my life, and I'm like, I could take this out and you'd be just
fine. But like, even like that fear that she has, like I just want to. It's okay. I want to take the goat head out because I want to solve the problem, but I just want you to trust that I'm going to solve the problem.
Yes.
Like, I got you.
Yes.
And this is what God does for us. Like,
Yes.
humanity, I got you. Like,
Yes.
those who trust in me, I got you.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna take on all of that for you. And then just kind of explaining what Jesus really went through from a medical perspective, what we did like off camera.
Yeah, we're gonna put the video in the description on YouTube too.
Yeah, hey, if you have, that video is not for the faint of heart. Just for y'all to know, it's not like gory or anything like that. I mean, there's a
The
few
description
scenes,
is enough.
Yeah,
for
just
your
hearing
imagination, just hearing what he went through.
it's insane.
You think you get it, but you don't.
You don't understand. You don't understand the type of affliction.
But we don't.
The type of affliction that he went through, and when you can understand, like,
The shame and the humiliation that he went through.
yeah. But my thing was like the substitution.
Yeah.
You got to remember,
Everything that he went through, you should have.
it was supposed to be me.
It was supposed to be us.
Like, this is
Facts.
where I'm like, we gotta understand that.
Yeah, man.
That there's a different kind of I guess the only time we can like put in comparison is like monetarily for like Americans, because you can't really like take pain. But like when your kid does something bad or breaks something, as a parent, you have to pay for it. Like it's just not like your kid, COVID happens, cool. You get a laptop, your kid breaks the laptop. The school's not just gonna be like, oh yeah, it's fine, no worries, no big deal. No, that laptop got to get paid for, not just because that was in the contract, but because someone's gonna need that laptop later. So your kid's gonna be far and gone, but like that laptop needs to be replaced. Jesus is the same thing.
Yeah.
Like his atonement on the cross was not just for that generation, for that moment, but we're gonna need it when we get to this point, when we come about being alive. And we have to understand that is huge.
Yeah, man. I mean, like,
That is crazy.
until Jesus comes, for every Old Testament person, you had to rely on verse 6 of Exodus 34. You had to rely on the fact that God was gonna, if you could turn back to him, he is going to forgive you. He does have mercy. He wants to. And then even if you're a person who's like, but why would you want to serve a God that's just so mean and vengeful, and you mean consistent and true to his word?
Yeah.
But even then, even if you have a problem with God's justice, he takes care of it with Jesus. Well, how could he kill his own son? Jesus chose. Jesus wanted to do it. It was, he volunteered. And when you watch the end of that video, you realize we didn't kill him. He gave up his life. There was nothing that a human could do. Jesus voluntarily gave up his life. He laid it down. No one takes my life. I lay it down willingly. And that's how much he cares about us. And we definitely don't deserve that care or that love. We don't deserve it.
What greater love? That's literally what it says. Like, what greater love is there than to lay your life down for a friend?
Yes.
Because like doing it for a brother, doing it for a mother, doing it for a child, that's easy. But who would die for their friends?
For their enemies too.
And for their enemies.
Let me read one more verse, and I want to explain something. This is Isaiah 55, verse 7. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. He will forgive. If you are wicked, I don't care, the worst of us, God is waiting to forgive you. He has compassion. Now, what does that mean for us and our fellow human? We have to be the same way.
Yeah.
We have to be full of compassion and be ready to forgive, be leaning towards mercy and forgiveness and grace.
All the time.
We have to.
I mean, because just think about the opposite. And this is something that really helps me. If you are a person that is leaning the other way, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're more about the justice, more about getting, making sure you're respected, making sure you get yours. Like, what does that give to anyone else?
It doesn't even help you.
It really doesn't.
It just brings destruction into the world.
At the end of it all, it's just death. Like, your relationships are broken and they're never going to be mended. Your friendships are gone and you're all alone. Like, what is the end goal of thinking about yourself or being unloving or uncompassionate or unforgiving? Loneliness, death, and chaos. Like, that's all that comes from it. But when you are a person who leans on compassion, who leans on empathy, who's trying to see other people's perspectives, who's trying to, you win.
Yes.
Like, you win. Like, compassion crushes all. Like, I don't care what no one says. There's never a time when you're going to be like, I'm going to be selfish or I'm going to be unloving and like, I'm going to feel good about myself.
It's going to benefit me
It
ultimately.
never really works that way. The only way it works is when you're compassionate. Number one, you gain more trust. You gain more friends. You gain more love, more loving relationships. And you start to feel better about not just about yourself, but even about like what God can do through you. You start to feel better about that. And then you start to actually see the kingdom of God unfold in front of you. When you withhold that, you miss the kingdom of God.
Yeah, man.
And that's the scary thing for me.
And like, if you are really upset with another person, like, if you could just see them as the way God sees them, even if they're a total stranger and they're just awful to you.
Yeah.
If you like showed them compassion instead of what you should show them, which is like anger and aggression, like what's that gonna do to that person? They're gonna be like,
They're gonna be
you're
shocked.
weird. Even if they walk away from you and they hit you with an insult and they walk away, they can't shake that.
They can't shake that, man.
That's gonna be like, why was he?
Man, when you think about an enemy and you doing something kind for them, like I mean, there's like countless movies. I can't think of a specific movie, but there's a scene that I remember where the guy is like the good guy and the bad guy, they're fighting or whatever, and then like the bad guy is like is about to fall off a cliff or whatever, and then the good guy's like, give me your hand, like let me help you up. First of all, we just been trying to fight to the death. You've been trying to kill me. I mean, the good guy's like, I'm just trying to like get free, but the bad guy's like, I'm trying to kill you. And the moment that the good guy has the advantage, he doesn't use it to destroy the person. He's like, let me help you up. And then you can always tell in those moments where, and I know they're just actors, but I think like in that split moment, it's just like, okay, I don't know if you're for real or not. Like, am I going to grab your hand and let me go? Am I going to grab your hand and you're going to really pull me up and then kill me? Like in your mind, you have to wrestle with this. And I think what we do as believers is we try to, we remove all doubt from the person by just being angry, mad or whatever. Then they're just like, that's why I'm
justified in being
exactly. That's why I don't mess with Christians.
That's why I'm That's why I'm just mean to everybody.
I look at like the LGBT community, and I'm becoming more and more passionate, like compassionate toward them, because I'm just like, how many times have they been like in a way like trying to reach out, and all we've given them is like, well, when you come to Jesus, you just got to stop being gay first. Like that ain't never been the case. I don't think that Jesus never told any sinner about their sin off jump.
Yeah,
it was all
he showed compassion first,
yes,
which gives you something to respond to. Like, man, you showed so much kindness to me. What can I do for you?
Yes,
love is easier to respond to than a rule or like aggression or punishment, even if it's deserved.
It's way stronger too.
Yeah, that's why God leans that way. And there's one more point I want to make. Compassion and empathy are related terms. And I just learned this about the word empathy. So it's actually a compound word. So the M means with, pathy means to suffer. So empathy means to suffer with.
Wow.
So when I didn't know that either until I heard it on the podcast. I was like, yo, that's crazy. When I have empathy for my fellow human, I have to suffer with them. I see them suffering. I join in. That's what God did. Okay. We were causing him suffering, and yet we are suffering in this world apart from him.
Wow.
Even if we don't realize it, we are suffering. Jesus looks into the world and goes, I need to have empathy on them. I need to join them in their suffering. He does it so much that he allows our suffering to kill him, to end him.
Wow.
Right? To crucify him. Right? He gives up his life. He lays down his life because of our suffering, to suffer with us. He's constantly going around seeing the poor, seeing the needy, and he has empathy. He has compassion. He joins in their suffering.
Wow.
That's what we need to do. We have to do that for our fellow man, dude.
Suffer with. And this is something like I learned, and I thought it was like it helped me to understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. And like sympathy was like, seeing a man in a hole. And
man, that sucks.
And that sucks. And then like, even like, just, and pity is like, man, sorry you're down there. Hope you get out one day. And just like keep pushing. Like, yeah, that's pity, that's sympathy. But what empathy says is like, no, let me grab a rope, tie it to this log, hop down into the hole, sit with you as long as you need to sit, but like always reminding you, we're suffering down here, but we can get out
of this. Yeah.
Like it's going to take work too. Like I think that's the idea. Like suffering with someone is not it's not as easy just sliding down the rope.
No, it's hard.
You still got to get out of there. You got to climb back up, and climbing back up that rope is not going to be easy. So just go in with the mindset, if you're ever going to show empathy, suffer with that person, but suffer with them with the intent of getting out of the hole.
Yes.
Like,
because that's what God did. He got us out. Jesus got us out.
He came down. He lived. He suffered. He went into the grave and God rose him from the dead,
And he
so
suffered
that
his
we
whole
can do the
life.
same.
Like Pastor Carl pointed out, Jesus was poor.
Yeah, he was poor.
He was not born in some rich family. He was a man of many sorrows. He didn't have a place to lay his head. Like, he suffered his whole life.
Especially knowing where he came from.
Yeah. Leaving like eternal riches and glory and respect and honor to come down and suffer an entire life and then suffer the humiliation and shame of becoming sin on our behalf.
Like, so that God could punish it.
Yes. Oh, man.
That's wild.
If we can grasp this, people, the way that we see each other and see God, and we see his character, and we know the God that we serve, like, it should change how we relate to this God. And that's a huge passion of mine, is to help other people and to constantly remind myself, like, who I'm in a relationship with my Creator, and like who he is, and like worshiping him for who he is, not what he does or what he can do, just because of his character and the type of being that he is. Like, he's just worthy no matter what.
Yeah. And I think I just want to say this because I want to say this because my youth group is learning this right now. They suck at Thanksgiving. Like, I think they've gotten a lot better at praying, but like, they suck at Thanksgiving. Like, they're terrible. And I was telling them last night, and literally just use those words, like, y'all suck at Thanksgiving, because there's things that we prayed for, and then so one of our youth group kids went missing for like, I think almost 2 days. Like, just like no one knew where they were, and we were just like, everybody was freaking out. So then we all pray, and like, and then one of the students that actually brings it up is like, hey, so and so's been missing. Like, can we pray? And I was like, oh yeah, for sure, let's pray. So we're in our group chat, and like everyone's like, posting prayers, and like, if they didn't post it, they just prayed. And like, we prayed, and then like consistently, I mean, that group chat didn't stop. So someone was always like, hey, have they found her? Hey, have they found? Hey, and it's like, okay, no, not yet. Keep praying. We keep praying, dog. And then like finally, we get the message that she's safe at home. She had like taken some drugs and like was like in the wrong place, and all this kind of stuff. But she's safe. She's at home. She's recuperating. And like, everybody was like, oh, dope, thumbs up emojis, da da da. And I remember reading, I'm like, and then I think that following Sunday was Pastor Carl's message on like Thanksgiving. And I'm just like, dang, we missed this completely. And I say all that to say, because I don't know if you can actually worship God or be in awe of God or respect God in a way of him being who he is, just because of who he is. The only way you can actually do that is after being thankful for what he has done.
Yes.
So like, as a young believer, as a young Christian, you're not just gonna come out the gate like, I'm gonna worship you because of who you are. Like, I think that
you gotta get to know him.
You gotta get to know him. So the way you get to know him is like, when you pray and he answers it in your favor, you must give thanks in the same measure that you prayed for it.
Yes.
You have to go in the same, or even more.
Yeah.
Like, wow, God, like, I asked for this and you did it. Thank you so much. And in the beginning, yes, you will be praising God for what he can do. But once you mature, you should get to a place where you're like, wow, like, you've been this way ever since.
Yeah.
Like,
before I was even born.
I didn't even know you were like this.
You loved me. Psalm 139 says, like, he laid out my days. They're already like written in his book. He's known me from jump. And I was just an idea. In his head, like, I'm gonna make this dude called Jeff.
Before you was a twinkle in your daddy's eye, boy.
Like, he's not just has he known me, like, he loved me.
Loved me.
And
loved me enough to create me, but not even that. Like, as a believer, I'm like, you love me enough to create me, and you knew what I was going to do. You still waited for me. You still protected me. Then you chose me. And as a preacher, you called me out of the called out. Like, I'm just like, this is crazy. Like,
yeah, man.
How? Why? What made, like, and then to find out that it's nothing that I did. Like, we can't.
There's nothing that you could have done.
there's nothing we can be like, oh yeah. Oh, okay, God, I know why you did it. It's because I did X, Y, and Z when I was 17, and this is why you chose me. Nah, I chose you because I wanted to. Like I'm your friend because I wanted to be your friend, not because of it.
I want a relationship with you.
I just want to know you. Like, and I want you to know me.
Yeah, man.
Like, not just a little bit of me. I want you to know all of me.
Yeah.
So I think this is somewhere we gotta, where it's not gonna be easy to get to this point, but I promise you, when you go in wholeheartedly with the idea that, God, you have been, and what I learned today, you have been working tirelessly behind the scenes. The way Jeff puts it is like, you've been working this chessboard, and I'm just
the whole chessboard.
All I'm seeing is the square in front of me, and I'm like, why can't I get to that square? Like, I'm a pawn. All I can do is move forward. Like, move me, move me.
He's like, no, man, you understand? I'm trying to protect you.
And you don't know that the rook is to this left of you. You don't know that the knight is right behind you. You don't know anything that's going on. When we look at like stories in the Bible, we have to understand that like you have to just take some time. What did it take for this specific moment to happen? What did it take? When we learned that this morning, I mean, you're hearing this on a Wednesday, but it's a Sunday for us, and it's like, you heard this morning everything that had to happen in order for Jesus to be born in the right place at the right time. A whole nation had to move.
Yes.
I don't know if people understand. A whole nation had to move for Jesus to be born in Bethlehem, and that was God orchestrated. Like I said, one of my students asked me, where do thoughts come from? Where do thoughts come from? And all I can say is they come from God.
Yeah.
Like, God put a thought in someone's mind to do a thing for his glory and his honor. This is why we praise God. This is why we worship. This is why we can like say, because you are who you are, I am going to worship you forever.
Yeah, man. Listener, you serve a God who is compassionate, full of steadfast love, gracious, slow to anger, merciful to every generation. He holds it to generations of thousands. He just extends his compassion to anybody who is willing to receive it. And if you cry out to him, he is quick to pardon you. He will forgive you. He has compassion. Like, he wants to forgive everybody. He wants you. He wants a relationship with you.
Yeah.
So just figure out what you got to do. Cry out to him. Call out to him. He will reveal himself to you if you do it with a genuine desire. And if you ever want help on this journey, man, reach out to me and Brandon.
Yeah.
We're here for y'all, man. Thank you so much for listening this week.
Yeah, thank y'all. Appreciate you. Hope you learned something. Hope that you gleaned something from these conversations. I know that we learned a lot, so we hope that you learn a lot as well.
All right, guys. See y'all on the next one.
Peace.